When I pulled into my driveway that evening, dust still on my boots from the long trip, I froze. My cabin lights were on. Curtains moving. Laughter coming from inside. For a second, I thought maybe my brother had surprised me, but then I saw her. Karen. Standing on my porch with a glass of wine in her hand like she owned the place. I stepped out of my truck slowly, trying to process. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steady but low. She tilted her head, smirked, and said loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear, "You can't just show up here. This isn't your place anymore." Before I could even answer, her teenage son walked out of my front door with a plate of food in his hands, acting like he lived there. Behind him, her husband was sprawled across my couch. My couch. "This is trespassing," I said, my jaw tightening. Karen laughed, pulled out her phone, and dialed 911 right there in front of me. "Yes, officer," she said sweetly, her eyes locked on mine, "there's a dangerous man on my property. He's refusing to leave." My heart sank, but I didn't move. I just stood in my own yard, staring at this woman bold enough to steal a man's home while accusing him of being the intruder. She pointed at me with her wine glass, yelling for her kids to lock the doors. And then she shouted the words that made my blood boil. "Arrest him. He doesn't belong here." But I wasn't going anywhere. Blue and red lights washed over the trees as two police cars pulled up. Karen's smug smile widened like she had already won. She marched toward the officers before they even stepped out. "That's him," she yelled, pointing at me like I was some criminal. "He broke into my cabin and threatened my family. I need him arrested immediately." I stood still, hands at my sides, trying not to explode. "Officers," I said, my voice calm, "this is my property. I just returned from a trip. That woman and her family broke in while I was gone." Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Don't listen to him. He's lying. I've lived here for months. I even have HOA approval." She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her purse and waved it like a golden ticket. One cop took it, glanced at it, and nodded slowly, like he believed her. My stomach twisted. It wasn't even real HOA letterhead, just a cheap printout with fake stamps. But the officer turned to me. "Sir, unless you can prove this property belongs to you, we'll have to ask you to leave." Karen smirked, whispering loudly enough for me to hear, "Told you. He's done." But I didn't flinch. I reached into my truck, pulled out a small black binder, and handed it over. Title deed. Mortgage papers. Utility bills. All in my name. The younger officer flipped through the documents, his brow furrowing. Karen's fake confidence wavered. She snapped at him, "Don't fall for his games. He probably forged those." That's when her husband stumbled out onto the porch holding my hunting rifle. The one I kept locked in my cabinet. He pointed it toward the ground, slurring, "Babe, do I need to handle this?" The officer's hands shot to their holsters. Karen's face drained of color. My fists clenched, but I kept my voice steady. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," I said, eyes locked on Karen. And for the first time that night, she looked scared. The officers shouted for Karen's husband to drop the rifle. He froze, wobbling on the porch, before setting it down on the steps with shaky hands. The younger cop grabbed it quickly, checking the safety, while the older one narrowed his eyes at Karen. "Ma'am, why was this firearm in your possession?" he asked firmly. Karen plastered on her fake sweet smile again. "Oh, that's ours. My husband bought it months ago. It's registered." I stepped forward. "Registered? That's my rifle. Serial number ends with 4396. Check it." The officer glanced between us, suspicious now. He pulled out his notepad, jotting the number down from the weapon. Then he turned back to me. "You're sure about that?" I didn't blink. Positive. I bought it myself 2 years ago. Want the receipt? It's in my safe inside the cabin, assuming they haven't broken into that too. Karen's mask started to crack. She snapped, "You don't have to check. He's lying. He's dangerous. I told you already, he threatened us." Her voice cracked at the end, just enough for the cops to notice. The older officer leaned in closer to her. Funny thing is, when people are telling the truth, they usually don't yell this much. Karen's jaw clenched. She turned to her husband, whispering harshly, "Say something. Back me up." But he wouldn't even look at her. The officer carrying my rifle stepped aside and spoke quietly into his radio. Karen saw his lips move, and panic spread across her face. "What are you doing?" she shouted. "Running the serial number," the cop said flatly. Karen's smirk was gone now. Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. Then, out of nowhere, she screamed, "He's attacking me," and threw herself onto the ground, clutching her arm like I had shoved her. The cops froze. One started to move toward her, but then the younger one's radio crackled with the confirmation. "Rifle serial 4396, registered to property owner, name matches the deed. Copy." The officer looked up at me, then back at Karen still rolling on the ground, pretending to be hurt. And in that moment, everything shifted. Karen's fake sobbing echoed across the yard, but the officers weren't buying it anymore. The older one crouched down beside her and said coldly, "Ma'am, nobody touched you. We've all had eyes on him the entire time." Her act crumbled. She sat up, dust on her knees, glaring at me like I was the one who betrayed her. "You don't understand," she hissed. "This place isn't his. It belongs to the HOA. He's been violating rules for months. He's not even allowed to be here." The younger cop raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because the county database we just pulled shows otherwise. Property's free and clear under his name." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Karen snapped. She jumped up, stormed to my front door, and yanked it open. "Kids! Get out here." Two of her kids shuffled out, carrying backpacks stuffed so full they looked ready to burst. My stomach tightened. Those weren't school bags, they were filled with my things. My books, my tools, even my late father's old pocket watch glinted from the half-open zipper. I stepped forward, my voice low but sharp. "You had your kids stealing from me?" Karen's husband muttered, "Karen, maybe we should just..." "Shut up," she barked at him, her face red now, all fake charm gone. "You don't get it, do you? People like him don't deserve land like this. He leaves, we take it, simple." The word stung deeper than anything else she'd done. And that's when the older officer finally had enough. "All right, that's it," he said, pulling out his cuffs. "You're coming with me. Theft, trespassing, false police report." But before he could finish, Karen screamed, "You can't arrest me. You don't know who I am." The whole yard went dead silent. Even the kids froze. I folded my arms, staring at her. "And who exactly are you?" Karen's lips trembled, but her eyes burned with defiance. "I'm not just some neighbor. My brother's on the HOA board. And when he finds out what you did tonight, you're finished." Karen stood there, trembling, still spitting threats about her brother on the HOA board. The cops didn't even flinch. The older officer tightened the cuffs on her wrists while the younger one turned to me. "Sir, we're going to need a statement. But from what we've seen tonight, it's clear you're the rightful owner." Karen screamed, kicking at the dirt. "You don't get it. My brother will bury you. He runs this neighborhood." I pulled out my phone, scrolled, and held it up. On the screen was live security footage from the cameras I'd installed before my trip, showing Karen's family breaking into my cabin, hauling my furniture around, even rifling through my safe. The cop stared at the footage. One of them whistled under his breath. Well, that's airtight. Karen's face drained. Her husband hung his head. Her kids stood frozen, backpacks sagging with stolen belongings. Funny thing, I said quietly, eyes locked on Karen, I didn't serve 12 years in the army, fight overseas, and come home just to be told I can't step foot in my own cabin. This land is mine. And no fake HOA letter or family connection is ever going to change that. The officers loaded Karen into the back of the cruiser. Her kids dropped my things onto the gravel one by one, ashamed. The younger cop handed me my rifle back, after clearing it safe. Sir, we'll file full charges, trespassing, theft, impersonating HOA authority, false report. You won't be hearing from her again anytime soon. As the squad car pulled away, Karen's muffled shouts faded into the night. I stood there in the cool air, watching the taillights disappear down the road, and for the first time in weeks, my cabin felt like mine again. I walked back up to the porch, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. My father's watch was safe. My walls stood strong. My land was still mine. And as I closed the door behind me, I whispered the words that carried more weight than anything Karen could ever throw at me. You don't mess with a man's home, not